So I recently got myself into a bit of a mess. You see, I was wondering whether it is still possible to drive competitively in Mario Kart World if we pretend that every item block and every single coin in the game is deadly. I just quickly wanted to find out how many courses, if any, can still be raced through if we play like this. I mean, how difficult could figuring this out be? Fast forward well over 50 hours later, and I not only finally know the answer to this question, but I also developed a slight post-traumatic trauma trigger reaction every time I hear this jingle. I hate this sound. But most interestingly of all, routing each Mario Kart World course while avoiding all evil coins and question blocks not only made me a lot better at driving on walls, but it also got me to think about a couple of interesting aspects of Mario Kart World that I otherwise probably never would have thought about. So in this video, we're going on a journey. We will retrace my little attempt to play Mario Kart World wrong. We will avoid hundreds of question blocks and thousands of coins. We will chat about a couple of interesting aspects of Mario Kart World that are related to our fun little routing challenge, and we will finally learn the answer to the ancient question of whether it is still possible to race competitively through Mario Kart World if every dumb coin and every stupid question block are murderous. So gentle ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people in general, are you ready? Then let's do this. Alright, so first things first. What are the rules of our little challenge today? How exactly do we plan to play the game wrong? So first, we're playing in VS mode. Whenever we touch an item box or collide with a filthy coin, we reset the race. What exactly counts as a catastrophic coin collision? Well, a coin collided with us in a catastrophic coin collision if the coin counter increases the coin count by 1. There's a coin counter at the bottom. This counter starts at 5 when the race begins and is regularly decreased when we are hit by an item or misplay, and only increases when we crash into a catastrophic coin by accident. So pretty simple. Whenever this counter increases, we dead. Second, we dead whenever we gain an item. The only way to obtain items in Mario Kart World is via quarreling with one of the question blocks. As soon as we touch a question block, the failure jingle plays, an item appears in the top left corner, and we consider ourselves to be legally dead. Awesome! Finally, what does it mean that we still have to race competitively? Well, two things. First, we race against the hard AI on 150cc. Second, we are required to finish the race within the top 10. You see, the idea is the following. Avoiding all question blocks and coins obviously slows us down a lot, because we never get a single item during the run to help us, and because we have to do so much dumb stuff. We have to do so many dumb and stupid things in order to avoid all coins. It's insane. We drive through grass, we have to strategically throw ourselves off the stage, we have to take the longest routes and intentionally bump into walls. We have to regularly completely come to a halt and to drive into boxes. The challenge is pretty much to find routes through the different races that still yield a normal placement that someone playing casually would get, even though, we throw ourselves off the stages deliberately. And we define a normal placement as a top 10 finish versus the hard AI in 150cc, because it is, the result that a casual player is expected to get. Finally, every skip or trick that we use to dodge the bad goodies also has to be reproducible reliably in an online environment. For example, it is possible to skip most question blocks in the game by either jumping onto a driver right in front of us at the exactly right time, or by manipulating the AI in such a way that we drive exactly behind another racer the moment the AI driver runs into a question block. We are not going to use strategies like that. Why? Well, because they rely on luck. As soon as we race against real people, we have no way of manipulating their path through the stage, meaning we are relying on luck to pull it off. And if the only way to pull it off is by becoming lucky, then we are obviously not racing competitively anymore, are we? Alrighty, right. So finishing within the top 10 versus the hard AI in 150cc, using only strategies that can be reliably reproduced and without ever touching a coin or question block, it is. What can't possibly go wrong? Here's a nice little overview to help us track which courses we managed to clear, what our final placement ended up being, and counting all the instances in which we ran into an especially filthy coin or question block that we were not able to avoid. There's just one more thing that we need to do before we start our little adventure together. We have to give this overview a name, which is surprisingly difficult. What do we call this board? After all, we can't just call it the overview chart of whether Mario Kart World can be beaten without coins and without question blocks, can we? Though, Now that I think about it, we totally can do that. I proudly present to you the overview chart of whether Mario Kart World can be beaten without coins and without question blocks, or the OCOWMKWCBBWCAWQB in short. And since we are already looking at the OCOWMKWCBBWCAWQB, we might as well get rid of the first couple of stages immediately. You see, roughly half the stages in the game have a really favorable coin and question block layout that allows us to beat them without much problems. So let's wave a magic wand and let's remove those immediately. Hooray! That was a lot of progress at once. The thing is the following. All those stages are rather simple and there isn't much of interest going on in them. The most interesting of those stages is probably the Salty Speedway, because that one actually took a bit of optimization. There is an evil row of ambushing question blocks right at the beginning, but we can luckily avoid those, and afterwards we take a neat little shortcut at this spot to avoid some problems below. But apart from that, there isn't much to talk about in this stage, and there is even less to talk about in the others that we just got rid of. The levels aren't necessarily easy to finish. Dino Jungle, for example, took me tons of attempts to beat, but there just isn't much to talk about in those stages. So we just clear them immediately so that we have more time to chat about the actually interesting problems. Hooray! Finally, there is one more thing we have to talk about. Which driver and card are we using and why? Because believe it or not, picking a good driver for this challenge was actually surprisingly not simple. Because as it turns out, Nintendo totally screwed up two very crucial things with the character selection. Two very crucial things that made picking a character for this challenge a nightmare. So first, Nintendo, are you serious about this? Like, this has to be a bad joke. I still can't believe why they would ever do something so obviously terrible and straight up evil. It's just, I mean, we can drive as a charging Chuck in Mario Kart World. We can drive as a snowman or as a freaking swoop bat. They pretty much added every B, C, and even D tier enemies as drivers. And yet, we can't play as a fuzzy? Nintendo, what the heck? Fuzzies have been central to this series since their very first appearance in Super Mario Bros. World 35 years ago. It is a very reasonable claim to say that Fuzzies have been the glue that has been holding this entire franchise together for over 3 decades. And this is how they thank them? By forgetting about them? And before someone comes and claims it wouldn't make sense for Fuzzies to drive a kart because they don't have hands. Neither do Goombas, and they seem to be driving just fine. It also can't be because of their lack of feet, because that's certainly not stopping the Pokies, is it? We can drive as a fishbone. The fishbone is a dead fish. Even a dead fish can canonically drive in the Mario universe. They let us drive as a dumb hammer bro, but not as a fuzzy. Nintendo, come on, do some market research. Read the room. That's the dumbest thing they've done since that perverted minigame in Mario Kart Tour. What an unbelievably missed opportunity. My final score for the character selection is 0 fuzzies. Boo! So, since there are no drivable fuzzies in the game, we're confronted with an actual choice of which character to pick, which brings us to the second problem with the character selection. The thing is the following. Because of our, let's call it special driving needs today, we want to pick a very unusual type of kart and driver. So there are 4 driving stats in the game. Maximum speed, weight, acceleration, and handling. So first, we do not care about weight. It doesn't matter for our goal today. The other 3 stats, however, we want a very specific combination. First, we want very high acceleration and handling. High handling helps us immensely in situations where we have to quickly react to all sorts of potential problems, and high acceleration is incredibly useful since we often deliberately have to bonk into a wall, jump off a cliff, or drive through grass to avoid picking up the dangerous goodies that are ambushing us everywhere. We do, however, want to minimize our speed stat, because for our very unusual needs today, it is actually helpful if our driver does not have too high of a maximum speed, because it gives us more time to react if something suddenly goes wrong. And thus I jumped into the character selection screen, ready to pick the best driver and card combination for a purpose, only to make a terrible discovery. The game doesn't tell us the exact stats of the driver and the card. All that the game shows us are the combined stats of our character and the card. We only ever get to see the combined stats, but never the stats of the character or the card alone. Meaning the only way to figure out which card and which character are a good combination is via trial and error, which is just, Nintendo, what are you doing? So usually we would just pull out a third-party website and look at the exact values. But I was feeling rebellious, so I decided to figure out what driver and card combination best fits our driving needs today, using only the tools the game provides. Which means I went in and out of the menu over and over again, checking different characters and cards, memorizing their combined stats to slowly deduce the rough stats of each character and vehicle. And after having done that, I feel confident in claiming that this information really should have been displayed in the game. But whatever, after tinkering around with the character selection for a bit, I settled for Baby Ouija on a Tune Thumper, because not only is this combination terribly slow while featuring high acceleration and good handling, but it is also a combination that takes away very little screen space, which makes it easier to see sneaky little coins that may ambush us. Speaking of which, most people believe that Mario Kart is a fun racing game in which we race against 23 other characters of the Mario universe. And those people are wrong, because as a matter of fact, there aren't many different characters in the game. As a matter of fact, there is only a single character to race against, and this character is a coin. The coin may dress up as Donkey Kong or Peach, but if we carefully look at them, we can immediately see through their disguise. Don't believe me? Well, then why do all the characters all of a sudden spit out 3 coins in a golden explosion whenever they are hit by an item like a shell? Why do all the characters spit out coins when lightning strikes, not only slowing us down, but also transforming the whole racing track into a dangerous minefield? Why do all the racers all of a sudden have access to golden shells that leave behind a shiny yet deadly trail of riches? And worst of all, why would all the characters vomit up catastrophic coins as soon as they use a question block item? There is just one possible explanation, isn't there? Because they aren't characters. It's because they are coins. The other 23 racers aren't racing for fun. They're racing to make us rich. Literally every spot could all of a sudden become infused with coins. So how do we deal with all of this? Well, that's actually a very good question. Take the Shy Guy Bazaar stage, for example. There are no coins or question blocks in this level that are terribly difficult to avoid. However, I was still dying over and over again while trying to beat the stage. The problem? Well, the problem is that most sections of the race are enclosed. We can't really drive off the road in an emergency. Usually, when lightning strikes or a golden shell devastates the road or, Wario randomly throws up some coins, then we just leave the road until it is safe again. But in the Shy Guy Bazaar, we can't really do that. So what do we do in such a case? Well, we really only have 2 different options to escape the devastating coin carnage that the other racers are committing. Our first option is not to drive where the other coins are driving. Whenever there are multiple routes through a stage, we try to stay away from all the other racers as far as possible. We drive on walls, take all the shortcuts, take weird routes, grind on rails at the edge of the street, and generally do everything in our power just not to drive close to the other racers. And luckily for us, the Shy Guy Bazaar features tons of ropes, rails, and wall riding opportunities that allows us to escape the other 23 murderous coins. Using this little trick, driving here immediately became a lot easier. Soon after, we already managed to clear the stage, even finishing first. What is the other strategy that we can use to avoid the other drivers? What can we rely on if a stage doesn't feature tons of opportunities to escape? Well, then we have to get ahead, of course. Take the Whistle Stop Summit. The problem here is the following. Early on, there is this long linear bridge, and this long linear bridge is as deadly as it is long and linear. The problem? Well, the problem is that if we drive normally through the stage, then we always reach the spot while being in the middle of the pack. That's especially problematic during the first lap, because at that point all the racers are still pretty close together. Right before the bridge there are question blocks, meaning that all the other dumb racers just got a shiny new toy to play with, and thus we drive onto the bridge while being in the middle of the field, and someone in front of us gets blasted by a shell and spits out coins, and a golden shell ambushes us from behind and taints the road, and a random ugly hammer bro in front of us starts to spew out golden coins as if they were hammers. And the result? Well, the result is us dying a shiny yet deadly death, obviously. The huge problem that we have to solve here is how to reliably survive the bridge section, especially during the first round, because otherwise we just get killed by RNG over and over again. So check this out. Right after the beginning of the race, there is a junction to the left. If we drive onto the rail here, then we can build up a lot of speed while grinding it. The rail, however, sadly runs us right into a filthy question block. However, if we jump off of it at just the right moment, then we immediately reconnect with the rail while avoiding the dumb item and adding even more speed. If we now trick on the rails a couple of times, we actually build up so much speed that we reach the bridge section being almost in the lead. Hooray! This means that we can safely drive through it, avoiding the concerning coin collection that is taking place right behind us. Thanks to this little optimization, we actually managed to finish the race as we just got killed on the finish line. Anyway, half an hour later, we actually managed to clear this stage, finishing as 8. Awesome. Let's take a look at a couple of other interesting stages. Let's take Crown City. Here, we are confronted with a seemingly impenetrable question block wall early on. Luckily for us, there is a little trick possible that allows us to skip this seemingly impossible obstacle. You see, if we decide not to take the turn, but instead crash our little cart at a very steep angle right at the very edge of the wall into the trash cans, then the nice little Lakitu takes pity on us and decides to help us out by placing us right behind the question blocks that were blocking the road. That's a neat little trick called the Lakitu lift that will actually come in handy a couple of times. The next question blocks causing us trouble here are the ones blocking the flight path. Luckily for us, it is actually possible to skip them. All that we have to do here is to jump off the road to the left and to drive on the wall. This little optimization actually perfectly sets us up for the next section, allowing us to build a ton of speed. Thanks to those little tricks, we actually managed to reach the end completely broke as 6th. Hooray! We're actually making really good progress so far. Sadly, our progress is about to hit the brakes and to come to a sudden stop. Because the next stage we're going to take a look at is the Mario Bros. Circuit. The Mario Bros. Circuit is a huge problem. It isn't ambushing coins that are causing us the problems, nor are it sudden golden explosions. For the first time, the question blocks reveal their ugly true character. Here's the culprit. It's this question block blockade that is blocking us. This question block blockade is just placed in a really unusual question block blockade layout, unquestionably blocking us. The problem is the following. For whatever reason, Nintendo decided to extend these question blocks out a little bit further to the edge of the road than they usually do. Normally, there's just enough space besides the question block blockade to barely make it past them. But not here. To make matters even worse, we can't use a Lakitu lift to skip those blocks. I drove poor little baby Luigi over this cliff more often than I can count, but sadly, not a single one of my attempts was able to convince the otherwise so useful little Lakitu to be a little bit useful. He always places us right in front of the dumb blockade again. So if we can't drive besides it, and if we can't Lakitu skip it, then this raises the question of how to skip the question block blockade then. And the answer is sadly, we don't. It's sadly game over here. There is nothing we can do. Those question blocks are sadly, obviously unskippable. Those dumb question blocks just outsmarted us. We are sadly forced to pick up an item here. So let's pull out the OCO, WMKW, CBBW, CAWQB and increase our unavoidable question block counter. Not once, not twice, but 3 times. We have to grab one devastating item here every single lap. It just is what it is. So I'm going to be honest with all of you wonderful people for a second. I can't tell you how much those 3 question blocks annoy me. It's just, we were on such a good track and those blocks here, they just embarrassed us so easily. They don't ambush us. They don't explode into existence right in front of us. They don't even really have a strategy. They're just sitting there, laughing about our failure, mocking us with their disgusting jingle, this terrible anthem of failure and shame. And sadly, those question blocks aren't the last problem we face, because the next stage is the Airship Fortress, and the Airship Fortress already features the next problematic problem. Here it is. There are 2 item box walls in this level that are difficult to avoid. First the ones in the turn in the tunnel, and later these little troublemakers directly after the flight section. So here's the good news. It is possible to avoid both of those boxes. The bad news, well, avoiding them is terribly slow. slow. We have to drive so incredibly dumb. The best strategy that I was able to come up with to make it past these item boxes reliably is to deliberately bonk poor baby Luigi into the wall right before them, slowing us down and allowing us to somehow safely drive past. However, this strategy is incredibly slow. We pretty much have to completely slow down twice per lap, which is just too slow to make it even close to the top 10. We have to figure out a way to become faster. And thus, I spent an unreasonable amount of time here trying to optimize this nightmare of an airship for coin and itemless play. Here's what I was able to come up with. First, at the beginning of the race, we try to get on a rail as fast as possible. This is mainly to get away from all the other dedicated coin card crackers, because as their name suggests, they tend to explode into coins without a word of warning. We grind the rail until this spot, jump off and switch the rail here to pick up some speed, which brings us into a perfect position right before the tunnel. And this is where things become fun. You see, as it turns out, we actually don't have to bonk into the wall here. We actually can drive on top of it instead. We can just hop onto the wall when reaching the turn. So if you're wondering how vertically driving up a wall is ever going to be faster than bonking, well then I have news for you. Because as it turns out, there is a little technique possible in Mario Kart World that I'd like to call rocketing. So what is rocketing, I hear you ask? Well, the thing is the following. If we jump while wall riding, we jump off of the wall with a boost. If we're doing this in a turn, however, then jumping off just means that we immediately reconnect with the wall, allowing us to perform another wall jump off of it, and another one, and so on. And the result is, well, the result is us going whee! We take off the ground like a rocket and boost ourselves around the turn until we land with a boost on the ground, which is like the coolest thing ever. I love this little trick so much. Finally, the question blocks in the second tunnel. As it turns out, the gap there is big enough that we can actually drift right through, which brings us into a perfect position to grind into the long turn leading downwards. At the very end, we can jump onto the rail to once again get away from all the coimplosions, and if we do every optimization we just discussed perfectly, then hooray! We actually managed to win this race. That felt really good. At this point, I was slowly getting new hope. You know, even if we're forced to pick up a dumb item box every once in a while, like in a Mario Bros. Circuit, this journey is still worth it. Maybe it is not possible to fulfill my dream of finishing within the top 10 of every Mario Kart race while racing against a hard AI in 150cc without picking up a single coin or touching a single question block, but if our attempt of trying to finish within the top 10 of every Mario Kart World race while racing against a hard AI in 150cc mode without picking up a single coin or touching a single question block allows us to learn about cool Mario Kart tech like rocketing and forces us to look at the stages through a unique lens, revealing interesting routes that we otherwise would have never considered, then this journey is still worth completing. Winning the race in the airship fortress really energized me. I was driving better than ever before. The Boo Cinema was next and I was pretty easily able to get 9th place in it. Scratch another one off of the list. Off we are to the Starview Peak, one of my least favorite stages. The whole stage just looks as if someone forgot to put in the Technicolor before recording the Rainbow Road. It's just so bland. But luckily we don't have to spend much time here either, because after only a couple of attempts we already managed to finish 4th here. Hooray! Fortunately for us, the next stage on the chopping block is much better. DK Spaceport, my favorite stage in the game. In my humble opinion, they really nailed the feeling of being within the DK arcade game here. The most challenging part here is taking all the turns, because there are always a bunch of item boxes stubbornly blocking our path right in front of them. Luckily, all of those can be wall grinded around in some form or another, which allows us to finish this stage as 7th. Next stop, the Cheap Cheap Falls. The Cheap Cheap Falls are a tough little cookie. First, there's this section where we have to skip question blocks by wall riding on the side in such a way that we afterwards immediately make it onto a railing. Afterwards, there is a long section leading into a wall jump where we can't really get away from the other 23 coin cards, making us especially susceptible to random coimplosions, before we take the mushroom boost shortcut without the mushroom, which loses surprisingly little time. It didn't take terribly long, and we are already reaching the finish line, before a toad right in front of us spits out a coin right in our face. Half an hour later, we pull off an actual 7th place finish. Hooray! Sky High Sunday is next. Another really great stage. There is just so much of rail madness and trick jumpery possible here. It's great. In the beginning we skip a nasty coin on a rail here with a really tricky jump to get a bit more speed. Shortly afterwards we take this little optimization to avoid the other racers before skipping a question block wall by doing a fun little wall ride. It's a really cool stage, and thanks to how many routes there are, it's not too hard to pull off coin and itemless. And with this we are already getting close to the finish. There are only 5 more stages left that we have to take a look at. 5 stages standing between us and the actual finish line of our little challenge. Sadly, those 5 stages all confront us with one problem or another. So first, the Choco Choco Mountain. Here's the fun fact. This little challenge that we're currently attempting is actually not the first thing that I wanted to attempt. The very first thing I tried was to check whether it is possible to beat Mario Kart World while only driving backwards. And I very quickly came to a conclusion. Nopesy dopesy. So why do I think that it is impossible to beat any stage in Mario Kart World while driving backwards, I hear you ask? Well, because of the little Lakitu who is watching over us. As soon as we try to drive backwards on a course, the little Lakitu pulls out his kart fishing rod and turns us back straight again. Which raises a question, doesn't it? Why would the little innocent Lakitu ever do something like this? Why doesn't he allow us to drive backwards for a little? And the answer? Well, as it turns out, the little innocent Lakitu might actually be not as innocent as he wants us to believe. Because in truth, the little Lakitu is actually a snitching tattletale who is spying on us in secret. The little Lakitu is secretly working for Nintendo, following us on every step we take, trying to make sure that we don't accidentally end up having fun in the wrong way. He's basically the fun police, parentally watching over us with a sharp eye, making sure we don't ruin our own experience by enjoying the game in an unintended way. And on the Choco Mountain, the little Lakitu was actually so lovingly protecting me that I would have loved to return the kindness by kindly gifting him a blue shell right up his silly cloud. But to understand what was causing my desire to commit Lakitu homicide, we first have to talk about the Choco Mountain. I hate the Choco Mountain. The problem is not necessarily the mountain, neither is it the chocolate. The problem are once again filthy coins. It's this section here. This section for which I'd like to coin the name the Devilish Enrichment Driveway. What's the problem with the Devilish Enrichment Driveway? Well, it's pretty devilishly tricky to drive our way through without accidentally becoming very rich. So first, the natural coin layout here already makes it very difficult to drive through this spot, but that's not the main problem. The main problem is that the AI is just so unbelievably likely to use coin items here, it is absurd. I honestly suspect that there is a system in place that manipulates which items the AI drivers get at which point in the stage because this stuff isn't normal. There are almost always literally billions of coins lying on the ground here. To make matters even worse, the turn is really tight, meaning there is barely any space to avoid the dangerous fortunes lying around. Finally, the turn is also alongside a mountain. Because of this, we can't see very far ahead, which means we have very little reaction time to avoid the collective coin orgy that is going on the road. It's honestly a nightmare. I just wasn't able to find a consistent way to drive through this madness. We need to figure out a way to skip this devilish enrichment driveway. And this is where the little loving Lakitu comes back into the picture. Because would you believe it? The relief! As it turns out, there is actually a railway hidden a bit besides the enrichment driveway that conveniently skips the entire thing and loops back into the main stage. We may actually manage to stay broke. The only problem, the little Lakitu's fun-detected antenna just started to blink violently as soon as we drove onto this rail. So violently, as a matter of fact, that he simply has no other choice than to save us from our own self-inflicted accidental fun, conveniently placing us straight back into the wealth grinder. Just think about this for a second. They actually went through the trouble of creating an alternative route through the stage, and then they programmed the Lakitu so strict that he doesn't allow us to drive on top of a perfectly normal route that they actually created. That's, an intended route. There are tons of such examples all over the game. I hate it. Nintendo just way overtuned the Lakitu. They crafted this huge Mario Kart with this insane open world. Everything about the game is about exploration, and then they put in the most aggressive Lakitu in the history of this series. It's so weird. But even worse, we still have to figure out a way to survive this spot. So here's what I ended up doing. I decided just to drive through the grass here. I just said screw it, if the Lakitu doesn't allow me to drive on an actual piece of the stage, then I'll drive besides the road. Great job Lakitu at making me play the game in the intended way, by the way. Great done, well job. It took a lot of optimization in other parts of the stage to still be fast enough, but after lots of tries, I finally managed to somehow finish 10th. Hooray! Only 4 problems remain. And luckily for us, we can immediately remove another one of those problematic problems. I decided to wait till the end of this challenge before checking out Bowser's castle, because the whole place appeared so intimidating, but as it turns out, beating it coin and itemless is actually surprisingly simple. All we got to do is to take the shortcut on top of the castle to once again avoid all the explosive driving coins below, take the shortcut on the sign because I like it, race carefully on the boosted part and hit the air boost pad in a bit of a weird angle to avoid a nasty item block, and hooray! We finish as 6th. On we go. Next up, Toad's Terrible Factory. This here is footage of the Super Mario 64 run that was performed during the Summer Games Done Quick 2021. Summer Games Done Quick being one of the biggest annual events in speedrunning. And I know what at least one of you is currently thinking. Hold on, Steve, this doesn't look right. I've seen Mario 64 speedruns before, and this gameplay looks much slower. And you're obviously correct, smart rhetorical viewer, because there is indeed something strange going on with this gameplay. Because Babzia, the person who is playing the game here, is actually playing it blindfolded. Babzia beat the game without seeing anything. An unbelievable achievement. How is something like this even possible? And the answer is, well, it's 3 things. First, it's godlike gaming skills, obviously. Second, it's tons of clever routing and insane memorization. And third, because of muscle memory. The more often we repeat a certain sequence of motions, like inputs on a controller, the better adjusted our body becomes to performing this motion, until we are eventually capable of performing it perfectly every time as soon as we get a certain stimulus, like for example a sound, even if we aren't seeing the game. Muscle memory is what allows us to become incredibly good at certain tasks in games. It is what allows speedrunners to consistently get difficult glitches, or what allows incredible players in fighting games to pull off crazy combos. Muscle memory is pretty much the backbone upon which many incredible gaming achievements are built upon. So why are we talking about muscle memory? Well, the thing is the following. Whenever I encounter an especially nasty coin in a game, or try to defeat an especially evil slope while routing a challenge run, muscle memory always has me covered eventually. You know, no matter how difficult the gaming challenge might be, as long as we just keep throwing ourselves at the challenge over and over again, we will eventually develop the muscle memory that allows us to overcome it. And this is where our old arch enemy enters the picture once again. The coins. You see, the problem is that the random coin explosions and the ongoing random artillery coin strikes have the side effect that every time we drive on a stage, different areas are coinishly intoxicated and impossible for us to pass. And this means we just can't rely on muscle memory. We can't learn a specific route through a stage and repeat it so often until we can even perform it with our eyes closed, because every single time we start a race, the obstacles are different. We can't rely on skills built up via muscle memory. We have to build up the skill to be instinctively and reactively good at the game, which is a much more difficult task. And the Toad Factory is the stage that challenges our reactive skills by far the most. The problem isn't a specific thing, it's everything. The stage starts with quite a tricky trick jump. We have to jump off of this pillar here to dodge the first question block barricade, which is surprisingly awkward to do. Next up is a long corridor in which some kind of explosive coin carnage is going on most of the time, followed by a simple turn. And then we are in the harbor. And the harbor is terrible. Here, question blocks and coins are being moved along conveyor belts, which randomizes their positions every time we arrive here. To make matters even worse, the bridge at the beginning is always in a different spot, which prevents us from coming up with a consistent wall riding strategy. And all of this happens before the biggest problem. All of this happens before the double turn of death. So why is it called the double turn of death? Well, because it's 2 turns in a row, directly after everyone and their piranha plant got a new item to vomit out coins, which means there are coins exploding out of almost every driver here. I really can't overstate how deadly that double turn of death is. No other place in the entire game killed me as often as this dumb double turn. There are just so many coins lying around here, it's disgusting. One lap it looks like this, the next one it looks like that, then we arrive and everything appears to be safe only for this to happen. It's just... Ugh. Toad's Terrible Factory is so terrible. This stage almost broke me. Over and over, some random coin managed to blast into my pockets. And since the coin layouts are different every attempt, we can't rely on muscle memory. Every single time we arrive here, the challenge is different. But we will not fall to the coin's trickery. Maybe the coins came up with an effective new strategy by randomizing their layout. But so be it if the only way to actually make it through Toad's Terrible Factory is by becoming so good at the game that we can avoid every single randomized coin layout the game throws at us, then so be it. And little by little, we make progress. Every coin that we avoid gives us confidence. Every coin that we crash into is an opportunity to grow. And fast slowly, coin for coin, airstrike for airstrike, and explosion for explosion, we grow until eventually we're good enough to make it through the double turn of death somewhat reliably, no matter the coin layout. And soon after, hooray, we actually finished this stage second. That was close. And with this, gentle ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people in general, there are just 2 more stages left that we have to take a look at. Wario Stadium and the Rainbow Road. First, Wario Stadium. Wario Stadium is bad. It's sadly a final gut punch close to the end of our journey. It's not the coins this time. This time, it's the question blocks coming for revenge. It's a really simple problem, but it is a really simple problem without a solution. The problem is the stupid ramp in the middle of the stage. At the top of the ramp, there are 4 item boxes patiently waiting for the right moment to jump us. Those 4 boxes perfectly enclose the little space on top of the ramp. There is just no way to make it through this spot without touching one of the terrible boxes. The first thing I tried was to skip them with the help of our helicopter mom, but sadly, little Lakitu refuses to place us on the other side of the question blocks, no matter how often we jump off of the ramp. The other thing that I tried was to wall ride on the small wall ledge besides the question blocks, but sadly for us, this also doesn't work. The wall section is just not high enough to skip the question block. It's just... There is nothing we can do here. We have to pull out the OCOW, MKW, CBBW, CAWQB, and we have to add 1, 2, 3 disgusting question blocks to the question block total, doubling our instances of failure. So, is it possible to beat every single track in Mario Kart World while driving in 150cc against the hard AI while still placing within the top 10 without touching a dumb question block? Sadly no. But it might still be possible to beat Mario Kart World driving in 150cc against the hard AI while still placing top 10 without touching a coin. There is only one single stage left for us that we have to take a look at. The most famous stage of them all. The Rainbow Road. If we manage to beat the Rainbow Road without touching a coin and without touching any dumb question blocks, then we at least have proven that it is possible to beat Mario Kart World while driving in 150cc against a hard AI while still placing within the top 10 without touching a dumb coin and with only touching 6 question blocks. A remarkable achievement for humanity. But we're far from done proving our premise. Because the Rainbow Road is not messing around. It is really difficult. Here is what we are up against. The entire track takes almost 5 minutes to complete, double the length of most other races in the game. The entire track is a single linear road. Nothing repeats. Every single bit is unique. Along this really long road, hundreds of coins have placed themselves at strategically advantageous positions. The question blocks erected dozens and dozens of item box barricades in one final desperate attempt to stop us. Finally, there are 23 ticking coin cracker bombs racing along us the entire time, all equipped with a wide variety of different types of ballistic coin missiles, destined to prevent us from reaching the finish line. The evil goodies really did their homework. The space to dodge them is often very small. Some question blocks even erected barricades so effective that we can only overcome them with the help of our hovering parent, the Lakitu. The most effective barrier is of course the one at the very end of the stage. To dodge those question blocks, we have to perfectly jump off the side here to reach a loading zone behind. If we don't jump far enough, then the Lakitu comes to the conclusion that we don't deserve his help because of our meager jumping efforts and places us in front of the boxes to teach us a lesson. There are just so many barricades going on here. The huge challenge here isn't it to avoid a single coin or a specific question block, but the fact that there are just so many of them, with the most complicated jump happening right at the end. The coins obviously settled for a strategy of attrition. It's the final showdown. We focus. We start the race. We immediately get a coin blasted into our face. Ouch. We try again. We drive, and it's another coin into the cart. And then another one. And another one. We don't even get to drive through the actual course. The coins usually manage to destroy us within the first 30 seconds. There's just so much coin spam going on. It's ridiculous, you know? The coins are so explosive today. So evil, so unpredictable, so committed. I really don't know if I've got this in me anymore. The course is so long, there are so many tricky barricades, the most difficult jump is at the very end, and there are so many opportunities for the 23 coin racers to snipe us. It's just time to face it. It's hopeless. We are already defeated. The question block blockades in a Mario Bros. Circuit and in Wario Stadium defeated us. We have to accept our fate. We aren't destined to prove that it is possible to beat Mario Kart World without touching a coin or a question block. The question blocks are just stronger than we are. They are a force we can't get around. It's just, you know, it's so sad. We rocketed through the air, we optimized difficult stages, we found ways to avoid toxic coin spam and rode walls past hundreds of question blocks. And yet, there's nothing that we can do against those two dumb barricades. And thus, I decided to return to the place where it happened, to further investigate the crime scene, to look for a hint that we missed earlier. The 3 question blocks on a Mario Bros. Circuit are obviously impossible. There is nothing we could do about those. But what about the question blocks blocking the ramp in Wario Stadium? Maybe there is something we missed there. And thus I threw poor baby Luigi off the ramp over and over again. I tried driving backwards, I tried driving atop the ramp, I tried to avoid it entirely, I tried to somehow trigger a Lakitu lift. I tried everything I was capable of thinking about, but nothing was working. I jumped and I crashed and I jumped and crashed and jumped and crashed, until all of a sudden, right as I was about to give up, as all hope seemed lost, the fuzzy gods all of a sudden decided to bless us with their fuzzyful blessing. All of a sudden, this happened. We jump off of the ramp at such a steep angle that we managed to barely miss the question block. This trick is insanely tricky to do, like really difficult, but it barely costs us any time doing it, meaning that at least in theory, it actually is possible to beat Wario Stadium without touching any question blocks at all. Hooray! And at this moment, I realized what a huge mistake we actually have made. We don't have to prove anything to anyone. Are there 3 question blocks that we have to drive through to beat Mario Kart World? Well, yes, but who cares? The point of this little challenge is to have some fun with the game, to look at the stages through different angles, to explore interesting routes, and of course, to put the coins back in their place. Especially to put the coins back in their place. We're so close to proving that all stages can be raced through coinless. We're certainly not giving up because of a bunch of stray coins or random item box barricades. We're going to play this till the very end. And thus, we return to the Rainbow Road. In the distance, the wind is howling. Distant thunder is roaring. A thunderstorm is approaching. And thus we concentrate on piloting our little bike like we never focused on kart racing before. The race starts, we're off to a really good beginning. And we get caught in a coin explosion immediately again. And again. And again. Alright, we need a plan. And then I had an idea. You see, it is only the beginning of the stage that is an enriching war zone. Since the Rainbow Road is a rather large stage, and since there are lots of alternating routes on it later, it is much easier to avoid all the coin artillery later on. We can actually take advantage of the fact that the Rainbow Road is an exceptionally long stage, because this also gives us ample of time to catch up to the other coin drivers if we fall behind. Slowly, it began to rain. The thunderstorm had come closer. As we try to deliberately fall behind at the beginning of the race, lightning is brightening up the horizon. This strategy finally allows us to survive the onslaught in the beginning. But now we are behind. We have to drive incredibly well to still finish in the top 10. And thus we concentrate as the rainfall grows stronger and stronger. We dodge past these coins. Avoid those boxes. We jump off of the ramp without a coin crash and dodge this coin wall. And this one. And those blocks. And those as well. And dozens more. There are so many spots on Rainbow Road where something could go wrong. It's ridiculous. But we won't break. Lightning is now striking close to us, the thunder roaring so loud that we're barely able to hear the music anymore. Not only are we dodging all the obstacles in our way, we are also slowly catching up. We're driving perfectly. Eventually, we reach the top 10. All of a sudden, we are within the top 5. As we are approaching the very end of the stage, we are within the top 3. Outside, it began to hail. That's no joke, by the way. That was literally the weather outside while I was recording this. A devastating thunderstorm is ravaging as we are approaching the last thing that could go wrong. We need to get the Lakitu lift past those question blocks. The lift is the very last thing we have to pull off. The rest of the stage is trivial. And thus we concentrate. We approach the abyss. We jump. We leave the road behind us. We fall. There's nothing that we can do now anymore. We either got the trick or we failed it. The Lakitu comes, he puts us on his fishing rod, he flies back to the stage, and he puts us right in front of the question boxes. Oh no! We failed the jump. The heaven was crying alongside us, lightning angrily flashed on the horizon, and the thunder was growling in disapproval. We were so close. But wait a second. We are still close. We build up such a lead that we might actually still have a shot at this. And thus, we quickly turn around and drive back a bit. We throw Baby Luigi off of the cliff once again to get into a better position to retry the trick quickly. We drive towards the other cliff and once again throw Baby Luigi into the abyss. By the way, sorry little guy, I know it's not your week. We fall, the Lakitu comes again. He picks us up and this time, the trick worked. He places us behind the question blocks. But we are no longer within the top 10. We're actually 20th now. We lost too much time. There is only very little of the course left to catch up. While it is storming on the outside, we remain calm. We concentrate. We drive. We drift. We avoid some rogue coins. We use our boost at just the right time. Suddenly, we're 15th, then 13th. And then, just as we drive on the very last bit of road, we break back into the top 10 again and make it into the goal. Gentle ladies, gentlemen, and gentle people in general, we actually did it. We routed every single stage. We actually finished in the top 10, never touched a coin on a single stage, and the only item boxes that we ever had to touch were those dumb blocks in the Mario Bros. Circuit. Other than those question blocks, every question block in the game can be avoided. So, I know it's a bit anticlimactic, but you know, sometimes it just is what it is. Sadly, there is nothing that we can do about those. But I do think that we can still be proud of ourselves today. After all, Wait a second. Do you see that? How did we miss this earlier? Wait a moment. Does that mean there actually is a chance? How did we not notice this earlier? Just look at the question blocks closely. Do you see this? One of the blocks is a bit off. Nintendo messed up the alignment here. The distances between the blocks are not the same. This block is slightly further away from the others. We have to investigate this. Yeah, there's a gap. But not only is there a gap, it's actually big enough for Baby Luigi to fit through. It's a bit finicky to squeeze through. It's really just a matter of a couple of pixels. But it is possible. So guys, we we actually did it. As a matter of fact, it is possible to beat Mario Kart World without touching any coins and without crashing into any question blocks. In the end, it is not our skills that make this possible. In the end, it is the fact that Nintendo misaligned the question block. Hooray! We actually did it! We just proved the old saying right once again. No matter how explosive the coins, there is always a way not to crash into the box. Hooray! So here we have it, Mario Kart World without crashing into a single dumb coin or a terrible question block. That one was honestly exceptionally fun to route. Before we wrap this up, just two more things. So first, a gigantic thank you to all my wonderful patrons whose names are currently floating by. YouTube is currently in its hopefully short YouTube short phase, and content like this is really struggling in the current algorithmic environment. The wonderful people whose names are currently floating by are not only making sure that content like this can still exist on a platform, but they also regularly get access to additional content and hidden stuff. For this video, for example, I actually wrote almost 15 additional minutes about Mario Kart's user interface and hidden information in the game, but I ended up cutting all of this because it was completely destroying the pacing of this video, and thus all those awesome people now get a pacing destroying video for free on Patreon in a couple of days. Hooray! Second, well, there is another question that arises now that we did the basic routing work for every stage, isn't there? The question of whether it is possible to win every race driving like this. We actually already proved that it is possible to win a couple of races like this, and there are several where we got really close. I'm pretty confident that a couple of stages should be winnable with a bit of optimization. However, there are also some courses that felt really difficult to further optimize, and then there are a couple of stages where we barely were able to make it into the top 10. So I would have loved to look further into this, but optimizing this further just would have taken me weeks, which means it's currently not possible for me because eventually you want to watch a video, don't you? So my dearest community and all you wonderful Mario Kart content creators who are still sticking around, maybe we can pull this off together. So I'd love to invite everyone who is interested in it to look a bit deeper into whether it is possible to finish the races first without picking up any coins or question blocks. Because I'd love to find out if it actually is possible to win every race like this, and I have this feeling that looking further into this might lead to a couple of really fun discoveries. Awesome. So here we have it. The coins were not able to get us this time. I hope you enjoyed this little video. If you enjoyed it, don't forget to leave me a thumbs up, and maybe you feel especially like a coin exploding onto the highway today and want to hit the subscribe button as well. Finally, if you really loved the video and want to help content like this survive on the platform, then there is also the option to support the channel via Patreon. Thank you so much for watching, and until next time, lots of hugs.